Stanja Belisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. I have a question for you, so I'm going to leave comments open. I'll preface this question with a little bit of background. One of the most popular ways to string up an antenna at the high frequencies on the HF bands, and I'll include 160 meters with that, so 160 through 10 meters, say dipole antennas, but also Yagi antennas, quad antennas, and everything else. A lot of people live in the forest and either have to put their antennas up amongst the trees or surrounded by trees, or use the trees as supports, say for dipole antennas. So trees that are leafed out with foliage or covered with snow, you would think that such objects would affect the transmission and reception of radio signals, and that effect would vary with the wavelength. It just seems to make sense, but I really don't have that much experience with it, having been of the type that likes to string my antennas or erect them out in the clear, generally in the desert or in places where there are not many obstructions such as trees and buildings. Sometimes rough terrain, but not often trees and buildings. So my question for you is kind of multiple in nature. To what extent have you noticed that foliage, leafed out trees, affect radio wave reception and transmission at various frequencies, as opposed to the seasons when those leaves are not there? Or if they're pine trees, to what extent do they affect propagation? Well, of course, you can't tell. You can't make a comparison that way, but what about when they're covered with heavy snow, as we are expecting here in the black holes of Dakota Territory, United States of Amateur Radio later today? Could be somewhat wet snow, beautiful to look at, but I don't know how beautiful ham radio waves regard them as. So I really don't know. I haven't, I'm sure there's plenty of articles written about this subject, but I wonder what in practical experience exists out there. And that's why I'm opening up comments to see if you have any experience in this regard. Please try to avoid putting links in your comments. It's a great way for malware to get into people's computers, and that's why I oftentimes reject comments with links in them, active links. Now, if you want to type the link in such a way that it won't appear that way, that's a little different. But to avoid all that technical detail about computers, I'm into technical detail about ham radio. And for example, a heavily snow-covered pine forest with a dipole antenna in it. Will that forest affect radio wave signals more at 80 meters and less at, say, 15 meters? Or will it be roughly the same? Or vice versa? Do you have any clue? Or will there be no effect at all? It's hard to believe that there could be no effect at all. But so many variables, so many questions, so much speculation. What's your practical experience? Or do you know anyone who has had some and related it to you? just a little curiosity in the mind of an old ham radio operator waiting to be snowed in on this weekend. It's Saturday, the 24th of November, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. As you may have seen, I gave plenty of thanks for all I have on that day in a good, well liked video, it seems. But anyway, brag, brag, brag. That's all I do, yeah? Stan Gibilisco saying 73, and so long, which, regardless of the tree type, or even their presence or absence, regardless of whether they're leafed out or not, snow covered or not, rain laden or not, whatever, always translates to da 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 da.